They never loved you because they were unable to manage you. They saw something in you that they could never have. Favor resilience, a calling bigger than their plans. They attempted to write you out of the tale, but you were the story. They murmured, planned, and maneuvered, thinking they could have what was never intended for them. Yet here you are, undefeated, irrefutable, unstoppable. They had no idea that their dishonesty was merely setting you up for success. What they intended to damage was only fuel for your growth. You are the chosen one. That is why they acted against you. Why did they want to hide the truth? Why did they urge you to doubt your own worth? However, the truth was never in their hands. Control over what is rightfully yours has already been established, and no amount of deception, stolen papers, or secret accounts can undo that. They underestimated the power of preparation, the force of divine timing, and the unbreakable strength of someone who refuses to give up. The moment has come. Their labyrinth of lies has been unraveled. The empire of falsehoods is crumbling, and the truth is in plain view. They fled from the inevitable, but they were always one step ahead. What was taken is being recovered. The tables have turned, and they are scrambling to cling on to something that was never theirs. You are stepping into all that was always intended for you. They moved as if the earth underneath them would never break, weaving their falsehood with the assurance of those who feel no one is looking. But negligence remains even in the slightest things. The misplaced step. The remarks were said openly. Their hubris prevents them from seeing their own mistakes. They were confident they could use the unseen, moving conditions to their advantage while you remained ignorant. What? They failed to understand that the truth is never really buried. It awaits its opportunity, pushing against the surface until the weight of their own falsehoods gives way. They believed they were operating beyond reach, yet the very thing they intended to seize was never genuinely beyond their grasp. They viewed themselves as builders of a faultless design, creating a road where every stolen component fit precisely into place. At first, their activities were subtle, with resources vanishing without warning, communications disappearing before they could be tracked, and quiet exchanges intended to remove your presence from choices that should have been your own. They hid behind papers, whispered agreements, and statistics that seemed to change on their own. However, dishonesty is a frail basis. Regardless of how diligently they attempted to cover their traces, their own fingerprints exposed them. A document has been misfiled. A transaction that did not disappear as planned. They failed to discover a discrepancy. Each error is a loose thread ready to unravel the illusion. You're here for a purpose. If you feel called, answer it. Click Join to get access to rare information, in-depth insights, and a strong community. This is not just a membership. It is an awakening. Step into your divine mission. Join the chosen. Whatever they took was never fully gone. What they buried was never beyond recovery. They depended on the darkness to protect them. Never think that even the darkest darkness are only fleeting. The same forces they had underestimated were now working against them, revealing every covert maneuver and false reality. Now, as light fills previously inaccessible areas, they are scurrying, not because they were apprehended, but because they were never as invisible as they claimed. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians. A snake does not hiss when hidden in the grass. It waits silently, fitting in until it is too late to escape. A wolf does not howl as it moves among the lambs. It travels silently, yet near enough to attack when the time is perfect. They were never interested in you, but they lingered near enough to seem the part. They smiled in your presence, whispered soothing words, and performed the character with the expertise of an experienced actor. Not because they cared or were loyal. However, deceit only works when it is cloaked in familiarity. They applauded when you succeeded, but their hands were clutching blades behind their backs. They ate at your table, toasted to your future, and made sure they had a place at your demise. They sat alongside you, nodding in agreement as they listened to your dreams, worries, and hopes. They did not stand beside you, but rather studied you. They never meant to protect you. They only needed to learn how to place themselves when it was time to betray you. But here's something they never understood. Favors are not transferable. What has been sealed for you is untouchable. What is allocated to your name cannot be stolen, transferred, or changed. They believed that their words might change your fate, that their deceit could alter the course of events that had already begun. But holy law does not respond to deception. What was inscribed in your name was never negotiable. They practiced their falsehoods so well that they imagined even heaven would believe them. But they never expected the truth to persist longer than the falsehood. Every dishonest word they spoke, every false move they made, and every manipulative game they performed. It was all recorded. Everything was seen. While they were busy planning against you, the evidence stacked up against them. Now the stage they erected is collapsing under them. The mask they wore is slipping, not by force or conflict, but because falsehoods need upkeep, and they've ran out of methods to keep it all together. The treachery they painstakingly planned is now the weight that is destroying them. They assumed you were blind. They assumed you'd never see it coming. But God does not allow his chosen to fall into traps without planning an escape. They sat at your table. They walked alongside you. They disguised themselves as buddies. But they had no idea that while you were observing, you didn't have to reveal them. They revealed themselves. The truth remained motionless while they bowed beneath the weight of their own falsehood. They believed they had control. They believed they had the upper hand. They felt they had outplayed you. However, favor cannot be stolen, and what they intended for your demise is really ushering in your rise. But each illusion has its own unraveling. They became casual in their victory, buoyed by the knowledge that they had outmaneuvered you. However, fissures always occur. When some things are brought up, their voice becomes tense. Hesitation, where there was once. Certainty, avoidance, where once there was ease. They thought they had eliminated their traces. However, the weight of their own acts had already betrayed them. The same structure they relied on to carry out their deceit started to move against them, not because someone was watching or someone exposed them, but because nothing constructed on dishonesty lasts long. What they believed was their victory was really the beginning to their downfall. They were satisfied that they had eliminated every trace, that their actions had left no shadow behind. However, nothing vanishes altogether. Digital records attached to their transaction contracts carried the weight of their lie, while automatic logs captured the moment they attempted to change history. The clock has been ticking from the first fraudulent conduct. Long before they contemplated celebrating their alleged success, they believed they had found the ideal getaway. But they failed to see that every lie leaves an impression, and every secret buries itself in the same systems they exploited. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you. Remember this fact. Our lives are based on his divine design, beyond worldly concerns. As Scripture says, give, and it will be given to you. Luke, like a great oak, we remain solid in his might. When you utilize the super, you will be able to tap into that blessing. Click the thank you button and donate money. Know that his fullness will come back to you 100-fold. They sat with peaceful assurance. They were certain that their plan was sound. They were certain they had collected their stolen riches. Then, unexpectedly, a neglected assessment raised a red flag. An apparently routine examination developed into a more thorough probe. An automated procedure discovered discrepancies that had previously been overlooked. The irony is that the precise processes they utilized are now dismantling their fantasy. They weren't exposed by an adversary or brought down by a whistleblower. The framework they relied on to hide their misdeeds is now bringing them down. They changed the paperwork and signatures. They falsified the digital traces. They disregarded everything, returning to them unspoiled, irrefutable, and unavoidable, since everything is hidden is intended to be revealed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the light. Mark, a home constructed on sand may survive for a while, but when the storm hits, it breaks under its own foundation. A falsehood might seem robust, secure, and even effective until the weight of reality bears upon it. They piled their falsehood brick by brick, certain that no one would detect the fissures growing underneath. They believed their plan was flawless, that they had sealed all doors, eliminated all traces, and burnt every loose link. They forgot that truth has a way of rising. It does not need authorization. It does not need force. It merely needs time. It began with a little detail, a missing signature, or an incorrect number. Nothing seemed hazardous at first. There was nothing they couldn't explain. But falsehoods are like fractures in a dam. At start, it's just a trickle, a little leak, something simple to overlook. But before they could respond, the river swept through. The audit was not just a normal inspection. It became a wrecking ball for the delicate framework they had constructed. Each fake record contradicted another. Every fabricated paper was in contrast to the genuine. Every modified transaction created a trace that could not be erased. And with that, the house of falsehood toppled. They felt they had developed something impenetrable. They believed that their falsehoods were impenetrable, their plots untraceable, and their secrets were buried too deeply to be discovered. However, they never considered the one fault in any dishonest strategy. Lies need upkeep. They need maintenance, constant coverage, perpetual fixing. And when they ran out of methods to keep their deceit intact, everything came undone at once. Now the system they exploited is turning against them. The records they believed were deleted are reappearing in unexpected locations. The precise documents they attempted to conceal are reappear in the hands of the appropriate individuals. Not because you chased them or exposed them, but because the truth was always on a timer. While they were scheming their achievement, the evidence stacked against them as they celebrated their alleged accomplishment. The ultimate blow was already in action. They felt it would never happen. They imagined that their strategy would persist forever. However, a falsehood is only as powerful as the time it has left until the truth is revealed. And now the moment has come. No more covering. No more explanation. No more fleeing. What was designed to last has already been acquired. What was founded on deception is already collapsing. They felt they had the upper hand, but they were actually setting themselves up for the same fall they were attempting to avoid. Now, they're scrambling to cling on to what was never theirs. You do not need to raise a finger. You do not have to fight, since the truth does not need a defense. It only has to be seen. And now it is in full view. The signals were present long before the lie took form or the treachery was disclosed. A calm inclination, a lingering notion, a subtle desire to cling on to facts that were trivial at the time. A discussion playing back in your memory. A paper filed aside without any consideration. Message saved, without understanding why. You were not looking for dishonesty, but preparedness found you nonetheless. While they were busy planning their strategy, the evidence of their demise was already being saved. Every neglected receipt, forgotten email, and unobserved detail that they imagined would vanish into obscurity was instead silently waiting. They assumed you would be unarmed, and that there would be no way to discover the truth. However, they failed to consider that the evidence was never lost. It was only waiting for its chance to speak. Some argue that the past can be rewritten, but with enough effort, the ink may be smeared. The documents changed, and the tale evolved. But no matter how many times they attempted to influence the result, time had already left its imprint. Every digital imprint, paper trail, and conversation left behind created a thread that led directly back to them. They labored feverishly to delete, modify, and rearrange events to their advantage. However, each effort simply reinforced the same basis they sought to destroy. A misplaced file has reappeared. A lost witness remembered a critical point in time that contradicted their carefully manufactured narrative of events. It wasn't only a struggle with you. It was a war against the past, against the very essence of reality. They attempted to create a universe in which their activities would never be known. But reality was never under their control, and the weight of their own lie is now the very force bringing everything they've created crumbling down. Desperation has set in, and their previously deliberate moves have devolved into frenetic errors. Every new justification contradicts every previous cover-up, only reveals additional contradictions. They believe deceit could escape time, but time has proven to be their biggest foe. There is an ancient truth. Falsehoods may go far, but they never reach the finish line anymore. The same individuals they counted on, the ones they believed would protect them, are quietly withdrawing. Not out of remorse or morality, but out of self-preservation. Lawyers have withdrawn their support. Financial specialists raise hushed worries, and erstwhile allies begin to erase any evidence of participation. Those who earlier persuaded them that everything was under control are now taking precautions to avoid becoming victims of the collapse. What once seemed like a castle of protection has transformed into a prison with walls closing closer. Their greatest error was believing that allegiance could be purchased, quiet could be ensured, and deceit could be sustained eternally. But fear is a strong emotion, and when the inevitable happens, self-interest takes primacy. The hands who formerly worked alongside them are now recording every dubious behavior, blunder, and indication of misconduct, not as an act of justice, but as a method of avoiding culpability. They never expected the treachery to come from inside. They never expected that their most loyal confidants would be important witnesses against them. The Lord will fight for you. You merely need to remain motionless. The Exodus. A wildfire does not have to pursue the wind to demonstrate its intensity. It just stands, forcing everything in its path to move. The ocean does not disagree with the storm. It waits, knowing that someday the skies will clear. Power is not a response. Power comes from knowing you never had to battle in the first place. They arrived anticipating a war. They want resistance and conflict. They needed you to hit back so they could twist the tale in their favor. They needed a response to hide their guilt. They sought to prod you into demonstrating something that was already obvious. But instead of meeting their expectations, you failed to deliver. There is no rage, despair, or fumbling for answers. You stood, and that is what killed them. Your silence became the weapon they didn't see coming. Your failure to participate left them floundering, looking for methods to exert control over a situation that was already sliding away from them. They interpreted stillness for weakness. However, silence was the weight crushing down on them without your ability to manage. They had no diversions, no scapegoats, and no means to deflect responsibility. They were left alone to face the reality. They crafted their deceit with the expectation that it would be tested by fire. Instead, it crumbled under its own weight. While they sought to bring you down, they had no idea they were digging their own hole. They were so focused on your collapse. They never saw their own collapsing under them. And now, it's too late to alter the result. The walls they created to keep you trapped have become their own jail. The same lies they used to harm you are eroding their own credibility. The allegations they prepared for you are now being used against them. They lost not because you resisted, but because you didn't have to. They expected success to come from your downfall. They believed they could manipulate you into responding, baiting you into making errors. But they never realized that you were never at war. You never needed to defend yourself. Because truth does not need a defense. It remains unaltered and unspoiled. Finally, it's undeniable. And now the exact power they believed would kill you is causing them to fail. Not revenge, not punishment. The relentless weight of truth is catching up with them. The intensity in their voices reveals their worry. They tried to rewrite history, distorting their own words and altering their own acts, anxious to regain control of the narrative before it slipped completely out of their hands. The more they strive, the more their guilt is exposed. Because, in the end, individuals with nothing to conceal do not behave in desperation. Their demise was caused by the accumulation of several errors. Caving in, they interpreted stillness for weakness. Now hangs over them like an unavoidable sentence. They misinterpreted your demeanor for stupidity, your tolerance with inactivity. But, in reality, it was the quiet before the inevitable. They believed they were repairing holes in a leaky dam. But every hasty effort to obscure one discrepancy uncovered another. One amended statement contrasted with a record that they neglected to delete. An revised report contradicted the undamaged original. Deleted texts have emerged from unexpected places. Their whole concept had been entangled in contradictions. Each layer unfurls the next. Initially, it was a collection of small oddities and hardly apparent discrepancies. However, the farther they dug into their own web, the more clear the lie became. They never considered how tiresome dishonesty may be. It requires continual repair and maintenance. The deception they created needed them to keep weaving, twisting, and shifting. However, they were unable to outrun the weight of their creations. There was a point when they could have gone away, a time when they might have acknowledged the walls pressing in, abandon the delusion, and save themselves from a worse collapse. But greed is unrelenting, and arrogance is self-destructive. Instead of accepting the inevitable, they moved on, hoping that one more lie, misdirection, or manipulation would buy them time. However, time was never on their side. The fissures had already gone too far. The evidence had already taken shape, and the repercussions they believed they could avoid had started to manifest. They are now bound by the lies they made. Shackled by their own inconsistencies, they drown in the maelstrom they created. Because in the end, only falsehoods need defense. Truth exists on its own, unmoved, waiting, and now it is in full view. But if he is detected, he must repay 7 times the amount he took. The Proverbs: a tree may stand tall for years. It has deep roots and large branches. But when decay begins at the core, it's just a matter of time until it collapses. They built their empire on stolen land, believing that no one would ever question them, and that no power could ever take away what they falsely claimed. But what they never realized was that justice does not need permission to march. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't stall. It had already begun to function before they were aware of it. They believed they could change the course of history and keep the money they seized, that the authority they seized would never be reclaimed. But what they claimed was never really theirs. Every paper forged, every transaction altered, and every dishonest move. They were all recorded, waiting for the appropriate time to be brought into the light. Now, the system they used to their advantage is working against them. The walls they created to keep their secrets concealed are now shutting them in, and the evidence they buried is emerging from the depths. Not because you struggled or had to look for it, but because the truth always finds its way back. At first, they laughed. They believed they had won. They walked about with borrowed confidence, believing that time was on their side. But the weight of falsehood is unrelenting. It pushes down, smashing everything constructed on it. And now, they're losing everything they've fought so hard to maintain. The accounts they manipulated are being investigated. Forged signatures are being uncovered. The territory they believed they had secured is being reclaimed. The same individuals they relied on to maintain their secrets are turning away. I refuse to go down with them. And you never had to pursue them. You never needed to ask for justice. You were never forced to struggle for what was already inscribed in your name. Because justice was already in action while they celebrated their false win. What was taken is now being returned. What was stolen is now being restored. But this is the bit they didn't see coming. It is not just returning in the same amount that they stole. It's returning, increasing the damage they attempted to inflict on you. We'll repay them in full. They thought they could muffle the truth. They believed they could erase the past. A divine order is not susceptible to fraud. The riches, they snatched the championships. They constructed the power, which they exploited. It was never intended to remain in their hands. They now stand with nothing. Because taking something that was never yours in the first place never makes you genuinely affluent. While they celebrated their fabricated success, the foundation of their lie was already crumbling under them. They viewed quiet as defeat, but stillness was merely a pause before the inevitable reversal. While they felt they had won, the evidence was mounting against them. While they proceeded with arrogance, the truth was about to deprive them of what they had taken. Now they stand in the ruins of their own creating, impotent, exposed, and unable to reverse the consequences. The riches they attempted to accumulate is slipping from their hands. Their previous sense of security is eroding. The illusion of power they held to has vanished. They imagined you had been buried, that there would be no return and no redemption. But what was once lost is now being recovered. Not only returned, but intensified, multiplied, restored in greater proportion than before. What they believed was a win has become their undoing. They plotted deceit, but now they must face the full weight of their decisions. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal, it all came back to haunt them. The alliances that they formerly relied on have turned against them. The system they controlled has thrown them out, and the reality they attempted to conceal has become the power that destroys all they constructed. They spent a long time attempting to alter history, but they never understood. The truth was never within their control. While they are left to face the consequences of their own deception, You walk ahead, unshaken, and into a future where everything destined for you is finally in place. They thought they had written the finale, but they didn't have the pen to begin with.